Welcome to Inside the Firm, a podcast dedicated to small business owners and hosted by entrepreneurs, Alex Gore and Lainez Cayko. Each week, they take you on their journey of how to start, run, and grow a business by bringing you inside their architecture and real estate development firm. Get a behind-the-scenes tour of how these business leaders manage their clients and foster company culture while creating new and innovative projects. And now your hosts, Alex Gore and Lainez Cayko.
Hey there, Inside the Firm listeners. This week was another busy week. I have been working, this is Lance, I've been working 14 days straight now at about 12 hours a clip. A little bit less on the weekends, but just trying to wrap up this development project. And Alex and I did not record together inside the firm, primarily because of we're both working so much out there with the development. But the other reason why is because Alex was the keynote speaker at the AIA Lower Rio Grande Valley conference. So it was really exciting. We had hoped that we could cut his live stream up and do a special podcast episode with that, but weren't able to do it. Something went wrong with their Instagram account, and we did not get the live stream ripped. So either way, he had a great discussion. This is a special episode. He had a great discussion with Sergio Lainez, who is, as far as what I know, he's the organizer of the AIA Lower Rio Grande Valley conference this year. So I hope you enjoy it. As always, you get to hear Alex's beautiful golden voice. Before we get into it, we know that planning architecture can be difficult, encompassing multiple projects and involving several team members. Keeping everyone's duties and data in order can be difficult, and an email thread just won't cut it. That's why ArchCat.com, the number one most used website for finding building product information, developed Charrette, a free online tool that will help you organize and collaborate, assign team members to tasks, share your ideas. You can even use ArchCat's free library of product information to attach relevant proposals or build and outline specifications. After you're done, you can then publish your project into an online portfolio that will advertise your firm's work to the world. See if Charrette's the right tool for you at ArchCat.com. That's ARCAT.com. Start building better content today. And last but certainly not least, as a Dell partner, Inside the Firm listeners and their firms are eligible for valuable discounts on Dell technology products and services. As a matter of fact, Inside the Firm here, Lance, I can't wait to get our new laptop from Dell as part of our Dell partnership and share all the experience with you and recommend that specific model because it is going to be fantastic. So visit Dell.com/Inside the Firm and select the technology you need to fuel your business. You can also call the Dell team at 1-800-757-8442 and a Dell Tech Advisor will assist in placing your order and applying your member discount. Again, that's 1-800-757-8442. Please identify yourself as an Inside the Firm listener when you give them a call and provide your member ID during the call, and you'll get our special discount. All right, here we go.
All right, this is Alex Gore. I am here with Lainez Cayko because I'm in the Lower Rio Grande Valley, but it's just called the Rio Grande Valley, and I'm here at their AIA convention, the Buildings Community Convention. And I'm here with, I know I'm going to mess up your name, and I'm going to do it the whole time, Sergio. How do you really say your name?
Sergio.
Yep. But I'm sure you probably get that a lot.
Absolutely.
Yep. And what is your role here?
So my full name is Sergio Lainez. I am the Building Communities Conference chair. So I'm in charge of putting the conference together this year for our chapter. And when I knew I was going to be in charge of it, I had heard you guys' podcast, and I said, you know what? I think my members, because I was past president last year, so I was like, my chapter, my members need to hear about you guys and hear your story. And I think I was enthusiastic to invite you, and hopefully you guys would accept it, and you accepted, and now we're here.
Yeah. So I'm speaking here. That's what I'm doing here, which is great. But let's back up a little bit. Between when you were younger, you grew up around here, you can name the town, but what was your decision? When did you know that you wanted to become an architect? And then bring us through your kind of college years.
All right. So I grew up in Brownsville. I'm originally from Nicaragua, so I'm the American immigrant story. Came here when I was 5, went through public school, and I was actually in like first grade. My mom has drawings and pictures where I'm just drawing houses and saying, I'm going to be an architect.
Really?
And middle school, I'm going to be an architect. High school, I went through what they call a magnet school. We learned to draft. We learned to do AutoCAD. And I'm going to be an architect. So when it came to graduation, I chose Texas Tech. And they had a dual architecture and civil engineering degree. And because I wasn't too sure whether it was architecture and engineering at the time in high school, because that magnet program was mainly engineering. So I was like, engineering, but I really like architecture. And then when I was in college, I did 2 years of the dual, and I got to calculus 3, and I said, this isn't for me.
Some people, it just clicks, and it's not for me too. And do you sometimes get when people go, oh, I want to be an architect, but I couldn't do the math? And you're like, well, you should have tried, because...
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I always post, there's always a post like, people always tell me I want to be an architect, but I'm not good at math. You don't have to be good at math. Just do it. Go. Yeah. And it's funny because I dropped the engineering, and I had done too much math. And so I actually finished my undergrad sooner because of that. So I did it in 3.5 years, the undergrad program. And then my advisor's like, hey, stick around for your master's, because you really need a master's to get licensed here in Texas, because there's the 5-year degree and the 4-year degree. I didn't know this. And so, to your listeners, make sure you young kids that are going to college know the difference between a 5-year and a 4-year degree. My 4-year degree didn't qualify for a license, so I had to stick around and do my master's. But luckily, he offered me a dual program where you got your master's in architecture and a master's in business administration. Best decision of my life. The business knowledge I got, as well as the acknowledgement that what we've learned through architecture school applies not just to architecture and design, but through life, through other businesses, through other roles that you're going to play in your life. And, our architecture students were blowing these business kids out of the waters in presentations, in even just dressing up and just being good presenters, being good students. Like we just blew them out of the water and everything.
It's crazy how much just a little bit of visualization will totally transform either an audience or your critics. Because I got my master's degree in construction management. And I remember doing my thesis and writing, and maybe writing isn't my strong suit, which is fine. Right. I think I'm probably okay at it, but maybe mediocre. And then I give the presentation. And obviously I have an architecture background, and I already had Studio Daniel Libeskind. So they go, holy cow, we didn't know this is what you were thinking.
Right.
And that's a caveat. That's like a tip of our hat to all the architects around here, because what we're doing is we're bringing buildings to life. But what the world wants is ideas to come to life, and you already have that skill.
Yes. And the other thing is, what they don't tell you in architecture school is you have to sell yourself every day. Yes, your portfolio matters, but a lot of my interactions with clients are face-to-face. They don't care what pretty picture you have. They want to hear you talk. They want you to be presentable, and they want to make sure that they're hiring the right person. And if you can't speak correctly or speak their language, then you're gonna find that people aren't gonna want to hire you. And especially down here, it's face-to-face, lunch meetings, dinner meetings, whatever type of meeting, campaign meetings. I've been through the gamut. And you learn from it. You learn from things you should say in public and things you shouldn't.
Yep. And think about how much people invest in researching when they buy a car, right? How much safety ratings costs, all this stuff, and they want to know that they're going to be taken care of. Right? Think about how much more they're spending than a car.
Exactly.
And they're literally buying you.
Yeah.
That's what they're paying for.
Yeah.
Can you give me is there anything from business school? Because a lot of architects don't have that. A lot of architects didn't go to business school. Anything that you took from school and you said, "Hey, this actually directly applied, and I can see it either benefiting me more than people that don't have it, or I was just happy that I got this piece of knowledge there."
One thing I actually spoke about this earlier because we just did a tour on performing arts centers throughout the valley here, and somebody was asking me something, and I don't remember what it was about, but I ended up talking about business school, and to me, the biggest lecture that I got and the point that sticks with me the most is anything and everything is negotiable, and if you apply that to school, if you apply that to work, if you apply that to your life, like you're gonna succeed. You just know that, maybe you don't have the resources yet, but if you're willing to negotiate things, maybe not necessarily a barter system, but hey, I'm gonna sacrifice this to get this, then you're on the right track to success. 'Cause
Right.
That's what it's about. You're not gonna, unless you win the lottery, you're not. We as architecture students aren't well off, ready to go into hedge fund manager type of role. Like we're scrapping and we're fighting for every cent, nickel, dollar that we can get, and it's like that every day. And if you understand that, then I think you can succeed in anything, not just architecture, just in life in general. Like just fight and scrap for what you can get.
And I don't think that's a bad mentality to have. I think that's a good mentality to have, right? You got to be hungry. And a phrase that I like, I think it comes from the football team, my alma mater, but I'm sure it doesn't, right? But it's stay humble and stay hungry, right? So know that every time you're going into something, don't just assume that you're going to make the sale.
Right.
You can exude confidence, but don't come unprepared.
Exactly.
And then stay hungry. Stay hungry for that.
I think a shout out to Lance here. He's always saying, wake up like you're broke every day. And I think that's great. That's the same concept. I mean, if you know that you're not, or what's the word? Not necessarily satisfied, but you want more, you just got to go out there and do it. We live in such a great country where we can just succeed. If you want to succeed, you'll succeed. Politics aside, you work hard, you succeed.
Right. There's one thing I'm going to touch on is F9. We have principles, and we have 9 that are somewhat semi-codified, but the respond quickly, be professional, and the last one's over-deliver. But if you respond quickly, right, and you're professional, that will get you so far.
Absolutely.
That will get you so far. I remember getting a call back. This was actually during the recession. I was working out in Montana. I was just doing manual labor just for the summer. And then I think I was down at F9 like the next summer. And the guy called me back and he goes, yeah, you were great. Like I had my notes to remember to call you back to have you, come back and help. And I did nothing special. I showed up on time generally.
Right.
And I just worked. And like that is enough. Right. A lot of the times.
So just kind of going back and circling around to your first part on a little bit about myself. So I graduated with the MBA and my master's in architecture right in 2009. The recession was hitting everybody. I had interviews, but nobody was hiring. So I just came back home. And the first place I went to interview was a one-man shop, design build. And he offered me a job on the spot if I didn't go to anybody else.
Yep.
He's like, don't go to any more interviews. I'll hire you right now. And, I was desperate. I was like, all right, let's do it. But, ultimately it was a good decision. Design build, what he was doing, it wasn't the most glamorous design work or anything like that. But I was out on the construction site. I was learning from the people that were actually building these buildings. And I was also learning the design part as well and putting construction documents together and all that. And when it came down to taking those tests, like I breezed through them.
Yep.
It was 7 tests in 6 months.
Nice. Same. Lance was in 6 months, and then I had to do it. I did it a day faster just to beat him. Because you can schedule it, and I knew because he did his first. Yeah. What's kind of crazy is I actually did the bridge where I did like 4 before and then 2 after.
Oh, okay. When the 5.0 or 4.0 was coming in, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. Or no, the 5.
The 5. Yeah. And I wanted to do that so that I could then speak to both sides,
sure.
The new guys. And I got really mad when I failed one of them. So like I started memorizing just huge chunks of information. I just went overboard with it.
Yeah.
And then the last two, I was like, this is the simplest thing ever.
Yeah.
And it was simple too because there was some, like it was details. I was like,
Right.
oh, I can do details all the time. But what I'm learning is some of the guys are taking it, and you look at the test percentages of success. They've actually gone down and they've stayed down. Because they said essentially there would be a bump down because no one knows what's happening.
Right.
And then they'll pick it back up.
Sure.
But it's not really picking back up. And actually, let's jump ahead. I had this question. The AIA, and I know that's an NCARB
Sure.
and all that, but...
It's actually not. They're separate. It's really weird. But keep
Yeah.
going.
So that's what I was saying. They're separate.
Right.
So it doesn't directly relate.
Right.
But let's just talk about the AIA.
Okay.
What do you see as a benefit to you? Like why are you in it? Why do you like it? And then maybe what do you see its future as?
Sure.
Either positive or negative.
So as right out of school, I was gung-ho. I was like, all right, I'm going to join the organization. I wasn't in the student AIA or anything like that, but I was like, hey, I need to learn. I need to know architects if I want to be an architect. So I went to one of the meetings, and it kind of put me off a little bit because it was real. A real group mentality. It was like all the people that knew each other, but they weren't letting new people in that well. At least that's the way I felt. I'm sure some of my colleagues would be like, that's not the way we were.
Right.
But so once I got licensed, I was determined to, you know what? I want to be what they weren't for me, where I'm inviting young people. I want more people to just join this organization. And the benefits that I see from the organization are, it is a group thing. But for example, here in Texas, our state organization, Texas Society of Architects, leads in the legislative cycle of really, really lobbying our representatives for our construction and design industry. This year we were able to pass a few bills that are definitely going to benefit architects, builders, and engineers. And really, it sounds boring, but they really are protecting our profession. I know you guys on your podcast talk a lot about automation, it's definitely the future, but for us, we're fighting for what we have now and trying to protect our future as well, so that a lot of our members down here do a lot of government work, and what's been eating their lunch right now is fraudulent lawsuits, where an attorney will just show up to either a city or a school district and say, hey, you know what, give me your plans from the last 10 years because that's our statute of repose here, and we're just going to sue the architect, we're going to sue the builder, we're going to sue all the engineers because it's right before the statute is over. And if typically the insurance companies will settle out, so you'll just get money. We'll get money, you get money.
Terrible though, like ethically terribly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this year we were able to pass a couple bills where an attorney can't do that. If they're going to seek services like that, the municipality has to go out and seek bids or qualifications from different attorneys so that they can do that if that's the case. And any money that they receive from a settlement or from actually winning a trial has to go back to that building that they are suing for.
That makes so much sense because just think if you could make money by pointing out like errors, and I'm saying quote unquote
Sure.
because your different set of drawings, you could look at my drawings and you could be like, why didn't you do that?
Of course.
And I could do the same.
Right.
If you could make money that way, isn't that the incentive is wrong? So you change the incentive.
Exactly. And that's, to me, that's one of the strongest points of our state AIA. Again, it's not state AIA, Texas AIA, it's Texas Society of Architects. They were just chartered in a different way, but they're still part of the AIA, it's just called differently. And then we're a smaller chapter of that, so it's a hierarchy, right? You have the national AIA, the state AIA, and then our local chapter. And our local chapter, we provide continuing education for our members. We provide meetings. Our meetings are fun. Typically, we don't do like presentations where someone's just gonna learn for learning units. We'll go out to buildings that are just finished or finished within a year, hear from the architect's perspective, hear from the builder's perspective, hear from the engineer's perspective. We have a great committee that just looks for these new buildings that are coming up, and we'll just go out and visit them. We'll visit buildings that are under construction. So it keeps our membership in the loop of what's going on. And then, of course, our membership hosts this conference here on the island. You're on the beach. It's sunny. It's beautiful. It's great weather. It's a great time. Everybody comes out here for the weekend, brings out their family, hangs out, gets some continuing education, gets to hear Mr. Alex Gore over here as the keynote presenter, and everybody leaves real happy, little browner from the tan.
Yep.
So it's, to me, the AIA has been something of a group. Oh, man, I don't know how to describe it. I don't want to get emotional here, but it's been another family of sorts.
Very nice. And I can attest that the water is warm. I am going into the ocean tomorrow. It is going to be fun. Another opportunity that I think the AI can help on, I've seen this in our community from the real estate professional group. So when the city brings up an ordinance, and if you've listened to our podcast, you know that we just love the city to death. But it's not their fault that maybe them and the general public, because the general public will vote on laws in Colorado too, probably here in Texas, same. And they don't know the different terminology. So yes, you could go in for a building permit, but it actually starts when you start site plan review. Do you have site plan review here?
Yes, we do.
Is it a horrible, long?
It depends on the city. See, that's the thing here. We have different cities, we have different counties, and then if you're not in the city, you're part of the county, and then some counties are really close to each other, so one county overrides another, and they have different parts. And then to top that off, we're on the coast, and so we have a windstorm.
Right.
And that just changes everything. We have to get a windstorm engineer. So there are issues, within cities talking to each other and within counties talking to each other. And for the state of Texas, you don't have to hire an architect to design something unless it's 20,000 square feet or bigger, which we're trying to lower. That's one of the objectives of our state legislature as well, to try and lower that. But you're right, where it comes to our local chapter is trying to reach out to our local leaders and government entities, because I know some other chapters have reached out to where even if the state says it's 20,000 square feet, they have an ordinance that you have to hire an architect at 5,000 square feet or whatever a lower number. Yeah. So their ordinance calls out for that. And so you're right. That's what the AIA should be doing. But ultimately, you are the AIA. So it's you.
It's so funny. You preempted me because my point before you just said what I was going to say is that our AIA doesn't do that. And I go, well, that probably should have been me, so that when I go to city council, I can say Alex Gore, AIA, vice president, whatever.
Exactly.
So it is really on
it's one of those things.
It's on me, and then take that as everyone listening.
Of course. And it's one of those things, it's you get what you put into it. I feel I've put in a lot these last 5 years into the AIA. I've gotten a lot of it back. It took some sacrifice, some family time, some work time, and all that. But it's you get what you put into it, and we've pushed some things through legislature. We've grown our conference. We've just tried to get bigger and get more members and really push for our students down here. So we don't have an architecture school down here, but we do have a local college that has an associate's degree, a 2-year degree. I was teaching there for a couple years, and then it just got too hectic for me. I took a year off this year. But they're doing amazing things. And then some of those students just transfer out directly to the larger schools, and they're kicking butt out there. And the stuff that they do down here compares, or is in the same level as the big schools. So, shout out to Texas Southmost College Architecture School, and the stuff they're doing. And, we have to help these guys push these students in there. Yeah, we can blame the AIA. Yeah, we can blame the state. Yeah, we can blame national, all these things. But ultimately, if you as an individual have the urge to push for your profession, that's on you. Do it. Let's go. Let's move.
100%. So looking into the future, what do you think are some of the challenges and then some of the opportunities for architects? And try to hit on both.
Man, you guys hit it on the head every time you guys ask people questions. The automation thing. Not sounding political, but I was hearing a podcast on the presidential candidate Andrew Yang.
Yep, Andrew Yang.
His ideas and his stuff is out there, but it makes sense sometimes. And you're like, man, all this automation stuff has hit the manufacturing industry, and it's coming for us as well. I see that as the biggest challenge that we're getting there. But we have a little bit of an age gap. I was talking to you earlier that I'm 35, and I think I could be off, but I think I'm still the youngest licensed architect in our chapter. And there's a gap between me and then the next youngest is in their 40s. Like, something happened, whether that was a recession.
Probably, yep.
People didn't get licensed. And here within the next 5 to 10 years, a lot of our members are going to retire, and we're gonna need to fill that void. And we're pushing all these students to go out there, and whether that's a community college or go out to actual college, which will touch into the AIA, or our chapter specifically, gives out scholarships. This year we gave out $9,000 to 7 students. So we're just trying to help as much as we can. We're a nonprofit. The money we give out is money we raised. It's again, you get what you put in. We volunteer hours. We host golf tournaments. We do this BCC conference. We just try and do the best with what we can do, and try and get bigger and better, and that's all we can do. But when it comes to architecture and the future of it, it's automation, and it's going to catch up to people.
It'll be interesting to see. I do think Robert Wygant of Sumex, and he's been part of BIMSmith and ArcCat, but he stated, and I think he's correct, it's going to hit the engineers first, because it's easier to program mathematical loads than design. And not that it will come to design.
Right.
For sure. There's testfit.io
right.
and things like that. But I wonder if maybe the generation gap might help a little bit, because there might be a massive exodus. And then these tools could help people in their, well, not mid-age, because we're not mid-age, but a little bit younger, handle more of that workload.
I know. I think I understand what you're saying, and really, are we going to be ready for that? And
are we going to grab it?
Are we going to be able to use it as a tool?
Is someone else going to grab it?
Going to beat us to it, exactly.
and I think that's the key, because if we don't grab it, then okay, maybe someone younger will grab it and they'll still stay in the profession, but maybe a developer grabs it and then just kicks you out.
Yeah.
But and that could clearly happen.
Yeah.
Maybe a manufacturer or the lumber company grabs it and just kicks you out.
Yeah.
So I do think very poignant point. You have to be aware of it and stay on top of it so that you grab it rather than someone else.
Right. It's the same thing like with Revit and the 3D rendering software. I know there's firms out there that are still hand drawing, 3D watercoloring stuff, which is beautiful. I love seeing that stuff. But nowadays our clients are asking for 3D stuff like within a week.
Oh, yeah.
So for you to be like, let me hand draw this perspective, and like, man, we don't have time for that. Let's go. Let's move. Let's just shoot out a 3D. Boom. Revit shoots it up quickly. Even SketchUp just to get a rough start.
Right.
Let's just move it on to the 3D, the Lumion and the Enscapes, and just keep moving. And just, I think one of the things that the AIA pushes is to educate our clients. And I think right now our clients are to the point where they're educated more on what to expect on deliveries. Like, oh, you're an architecture, you should be able to give me 3D drawings.
Right.
Oh, you're an architect, you should be pretty good at the computer, so get me this stuff quicker.
Yep.
So it's educating them that yes, we can do stuff quick, but we're also we need some time. Design takes time. Good design takes time.
Absolutely. One of my guys was working on a rendering, and he was doing some stuff in Photoshop because there's benefits to everything.
Sure.
Just like you said, there's benefits to hand drawings.
Sure.
There's benefits to Atari and Pong,
Right.
right? But it doesn't mean that you have to stick with it. And I said, okay, in Photoshop, if you want to go in Photoshop, I'm not going to limit him. I go, you can only do 5 elements in it. He goes, why only 5? I go, what happens when next week he says to move the camera over? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And then if you did 80 elements in Photoshop, all of those are gone.
Right.
But if you do it in Revit and Enscape and some of these other things, then it's not gone.
Right.
And I think he did like 3 things in Photoshop, and that was it. He's like, okay, I understand.
Yeah, and see, and like I grew up, or I went through the college, and they taught us AutoCAD. They taught us a little bit of Rhino, a little bit of even like Z-Form, and then you had to learn Photoshop. That was one of the softwares that I had never touched when I was in college, and then I saw everybody touching. I was like, oh shit, well I better learn this. Get on YouTube and learn, and that's the way I learned a lot of the software. And now I'm okay at Photoshop, but it's such a huge program. Like you can do, like you said, 5 or 6 really good things, but man, it's such a mammoth to tackle. But it is what it is, and we use it just to like fix the tints or the hues, but nothing past that.
Yep. So we went as far as you got a job. Yeah, and you were in a design build.
Yes.
So take us from there to you sitting in a hotel room, looking out at the sea.
Right. So
because that was probably 10 years ago, about 10 years ago.
Yeah, I guess 10 years ago. Yeah, this is my 10th year in architecture, and so I was at that job for 5 years. The firm closed down. I went to work for a well-known architecture firm down here that just does schoolwork. I was there for 3 years. And then it's funny because when I wasn't looking for a job, I was getting job offers. And this engineering firm just kept, hey, man, we need an architect. We're going to grow. We're going to expand. We need an architect. I was like, guys, not right now. I'm like, I'm enjoying where I'm at. Yeah. And they just kept nagging me, and they just made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And so I've been working with engineers. I do architecture for them, but what's cool about them is that they let me do my own thing. So I have my own firm. When I don't do their work, I'll do my stuff. And we're slowly starting to pick up, which goes back to what we were talking about, building relationships with contractors, with engineers, with anybody. A lot of my work on my firm is from contractors that I've done in other jobs where they're like, hey, man, I like the way you talk to me. I like your drawings. Do you do your own thing? I'm like, yeah. It's like, hey, well, I have this developer, or I have this whatever.
This land. What?
They just these leads, and they're like, yeah, man, just come on. We'll get you on board. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. And so, slowly, this has maybe been about 2 years in the making of just doing my own things, and we've done some pretty cool work.
Awesome. Do you have a website?
It's in the works. I have a Facebook page, Lainez Architects.
There you go. Well, great. How do you like working in the engineering firm?
It's different, man. It's different. The culture is different. The office is different. The structure, it's different. But what I've gotten from them is they're all about billing. We're not sometimes. I think all architects are a little guilty, like, oh, should I send the bill in? We really didn't do that much. These guys are like, every week, bill 1 through 10, send it out.
Yep.
And you got to do it. Even if they don't pay, you got to do it. You got to send out the bill. If they don't pay it, next month you send the next one and the next one, because eventually they're going to pay. And if they don't pay, then you got to figure out what your next step is. And these guys are really good at invoicing people. And I've learned from that on the invoicing part. They do all types of engineering, from civil engineering to structural to MEP stuff, and even some geotechnical stuff. And so, I pick up here and there. As architects, we're supposed to know a little bit of all these things, so that, because we're ultimately the lead and we make everything happen. So that's helped me as well.
I have a theory, and I want to see if you think it's correct or have any additions to it. Because the question is why are they okay with billing and why are we not as okay with billing? Because I think that is a true statement. And one reason I think is that with engineers, if you oversimplify what they do, they're running calculations, right? No one else is going to run the calculations. The developer's not going to run the calculations. You're not going to run the calculations. No one's getting out the math book and doing that.
Right.
And they know it. So, do you want the calculations run or not? It's literally binary. Now, some of your work or my work or any of these works might be like, oh, what does that facade look like? What do I want to do here? And then you might do it, and it might take you a while, and the developer might say, move that window over there. And sometimes they're right.
Yeah.
So then you feel like, oh man, they're semi doing what I'm doing, not to the full extent. They're never writing down a calculation in their life.
Right.
Do you think that that's why they're just like, I don't care, no one else?
Absolutely. I mean, it's something tangible. Like, yes, we make tangible drawings, but it's tangible of their service. Our service is a little bit abstract sometimes. Like,
what's the best detail?
Thinking of void, thinking of form, thinking of space, and we lose track sometimes of our hours. I know I'm guilty of it sometimes, where I'm like, oh, if I could just spend another hour thinking this window detail out. Like,
yep.
It happens, and we just have to learn to put a time limit on it, and it's hard.
Yep.
But with practice, you'll get it.
Yeah. And my only thing, we started this early, and I think it's key. So we use Toggle. So if you're thinking about a time tracker, it's Toggle, and everyone uses it and gets into a rhythm, or else it would be chaos for us.
Yeah, absolutely. You need something to keep track. So for me, I'm a one-man shop. So I'm actually more on alarms on my phone. Like, I have 20 alarms.
Nice.
So if I'm working on something, I'll put an alarm or a timer and say I'm only working on this X amount. And once the timer goes out, I'm done.
I think that's a great idea. That's a great idea. Is there anything else you want to leave our audience with? Any parting thoughts?
First of all, thank you for accepting my invitation out here, man. I think what you guys are doing out with your podcast and what you're doing out in the design and building and the developing world is pretty awesome, and it's giving us architects, for lack of a better word, a blueprint of that we can do all these things. It's not just limited to our design. It's not just limited to contractors or builders. No, we can build things. We can design things, we can develop things, and it gives us more power, it gives us more money, it gives us just kind of our own way of influencing our communities, and that's what we need, We all complain about the strip malls and the cookie cutter stuff, but what are we doing about it? Like,
yep.
You guys are doing something about it, and I appreciate that, and it's people like you that are just gonna help our profession understand that we're needed, and what we do is important, and what we do is good for the world, or for the community, if the world is too much.
Yep. And exactly, to echo on where you started, is that the listeners of this, and even if you're not in architecture, what we're kind of saying as Lance and ourselves is, you have a particular set of skills, and those particular set of skills are not limited to you and the page. It's interaction. It relates to all these different industries. So be confident that you've gained these skills and that they're valuable. So
absolutely.
So cheers. So thank you, and you'll get to hear Lance next week.
Awesome.